This week's Parsha, we learn about the fantastic, incredible Nes, the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf. One of the greatest miracles that ever happened in the history of the world. It's one that we mention every single day in davening. As Yashir, we recite the Shira that Bnei Yisrael recited when they crossed the Yamsuf. Many layers of meaning in the whole episode. Exciting parsha to learn and keep on learning again and again. And the Or HaChaim HaKadosh asks the following question. He says, "What's the big deal that there was a Kriyas Yamsuf, a splitting of the sea?" We find that the Gemara tells us in Maseches Chulin and Daf Zayin that Rav Pinchas ben Yair, one of the great holy Tanaim, when he got to a certain river, the Ginoi River, he had to cross it, and he couldn't cross it. So he said to the river, he said, "I demand that you split." And he went ahead and he split the river. And he walked right through. So the Or HaChaim HaKadosh asks, so what's the big deal? Okay, in a sense it's a little bit of a smaller river. But what's the significance of the fact that Kriyas Yamsuf is such a tremendous miracle if we see that it happened to the Tanaim as well? A similar question is asked by Rav Chatzkel Abramsky as a sefer called the Chazon Yecheskel. And in the beginning of Maseches Sota, he asks, why was it that Chazal tell us that when it came to the splitting of the Yamsuf, different opinions in the Midrashim, how the split happened. One opinion is that Nachshon ben Aminadav had to jump in. And until he jumped in, the sea didn't split. Option number two is that Bnei Yisrael walked in, and when it got up to their noses, that's when it went ahead and it split. It's meaning something like significant had to happen before the sea split. However, when it came to Bnei Yisrael walking into Eretz Yisrael, when they finally entered into Israel, so they had to cross over the Yarden River, and the Jordan River split as well. But it split the second they put their toe inside. The second they put their first foot in there, the sea split. So he asks, how come when it came to the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf, you needed like this massive action, like a jumping in or walking all the way until it's like you're going to drown, for it to split, and when it came to the Yarden, they just walked in. A miracle is a miracle. A third question is asked by the Sefer Ikrim of Yosef Albo. Has an incredible sefer about all the Ikrei Amunah, all the things that we have to believe in. It was written hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and all the questions that people think nowadays we're all bothered by because we're all such deep philosophers, were all already written down and answered by Rav Yosef Albo hundreds of years ago. It's a fascinating sefer. So he asks the following question. He asks, what does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu was punished that he wouldn't enter into Eretz Yisrael? Why? Because he hit the rock in the desert for the water to come out in order to give water to Bnei Yisrael, instead of speaking to the rock. He asks, but earlier in the journey in the Midbar, when Bnei Yisrael also had no water, and they needed water, Hashem told Moshe to take a stick and hit the rock, and water came out of that rock. That was the Be'er of Miriam, the well of Miriam, that actually gave Bnei Yisrael water throughout their journey in the Midbar. When Miriam died and the well disappeared because it was in her merit, so now it no longer was there, we needed water again. So Moshe took his stick and hit the rock again, and there he got punished. He should have spoken to the rock. How come the first time he was allowed to hit the rock, and the second time he had to speak to the rock? And one more question. The Gemara tells us in Maseches Shabbos, on Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis, the Gemara tells a story that there was a woman who died, leaving over her husband with a nursing baby. Now the woman wasn't alive anymore, so there was no one to nurse the baby. And the man, the husband, couldn't afford a wet nurse. So Hashem miraculously enabled him to nurse the child himself. Okay, a miracle in the times of the Gemara. Rav Yosef, one of the Amoraim, remarked on this Gemara that, wow, look how great this man was. for such a great miracle happened for him. He must have been a great man. And Abaye, he disagreed, and he said, on the contrary, how inferior is this person that Hashem had to change around nature in order to accommodate him. So, two different ways of looking at this story. It's either, wow, a miracle happened to him, he must have been great, or, Hashem had to change nature for this guy. That's not the way it's supposed to be. So that's not a good thing. So the Tosfos Yishanim, one of the Rishonim, on the Gemara, asks the following question. He picks on Abaye. He says, Abaye, I don't get it. Why are you all down on this guy? Because a miracle happened to him? We find that miracles happen to all the Tanaim and Amoraim. All over the place. You go ahead and we see through the Gemara. I told you the story before about Pinchas ben Yair, a great Tana, when he got to the river, the Ginoi River, and the river split. Miracles happen to holy people. So he asks, what was so problematic that Abaye condones the fact that Hashem had to change around the nature for this person? He adds, he says, the Medrash even tells us that Mordechai actually nursed Esther after the death of both of her parents. So we find that even a miracle like this, like nursing a baby from a man, actually happened in the Jewish history. So what's the big deal? Why is Abaye all down on this guy that a miracle happened to him? Okay. Here's the answer that answers all of these questions. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh answers the question from Kriyas Yamsuf as follows. There's a fundamental difference between the miracle of the splitting of the Yamsuf and the splitting of the Ginoi River when Pinchas ben Yair in the times of the Mishnah declared that the river should be split. One, i.e. Kriyas Yamsuf, happened before the Torah was given, and the other, i.e. Pinchas ben Yair splitting the Ginoi River in the times of the Mishnah, was after the Torah was given. Once the Torah was given, it's no longer a miracle for nature to bend and change in front of a person who embodies the Torah. Before the Torah was given, how in the world did the Yamsuf get split? Whoa, what a miracle. Nature flipping over all over the place, winds, splitting of the sea, dry land, the whole thing. Unbelievable. How did a miracle like that happen? That's a huge miracle. But after the Torah was given, and people were able to learn the Torah, connect to the Torah, connect to Hashem through the Torah, embody what the Torah means, if a miracle happens to them, that's normal. It's normal for nature to bend in front of someone who embodies the Torah. Explains Yochatzkel Abramsky, the same thing was the difference between Kriyas Yamsuf, which required a jumping in, an action, an intense action. Either the water coming up to here or jumping in, as opposed to the crossing of the Yarden. The Yarden was crossed after Matan Torah, right? The Jewish people, it's at the end of the desert of the 40 years, the Torah was already given. They're walking into Eretz Yisrael. At that point, a nation that embodies the Torah, they just put their pinky toe into the water and the whole thing splits, and that's not a miracle. That is normal. That's a normal thing. And so too, says Rav Yosef Albo in the Sefer HaIkrim, this is the answer with Moshe Rabbeinu and the hitting of the rock and speaking to the rock. Before the Torah was given at the beginning of the journey in the Midbar, so you want water to come out of a rock? That's a pretty intense miracle. You need an intense action like hitting it to be able to bring out the water. But after the Torah was already given, all Moshe had to do was just say, water, come out of the rock. Simple speech, and the whole thing would have happened. Because Moshe was someone who embodied the Torah and was able to make these miracles happen because that is the natural order of the world for the nature to bend in front of the Torah. And explains of Chaim Volozhiner in a sefer called Milos HaSulam in the Aliyos Eliyahu, note 19. He says that is the explanation of this Gemara in Masechah Shabbos. He notes that the Gemara, sometimes when you read stories in the Gemara, we always have to be careful. We sometimes gloss over this. Who's the story about? So many times we'll say, Maseh b'chasid echad. It was a story with a certain chassid, a righteous individual. Over there in that Gemara, it says, Maisa be'echad. It was a regular guy. A regular guy. A story happened to a regular guy. He wasn't a big Talmud Chacham. He wasn't a great scholar. He wasn't a super righteous individual. He was a regular guy who unfortunately his wife passed away. And a miracle happened to him. So explains Reb Chaim Volozhiner. You know why Mordechai wasn't condoned for the fact that he nursed his niece, Esther? You know why that wasn't considered a bad thing? Because he's Mordechai. He was a tzaddik. He embodied the Torah. So of course miracles happened to someone like that. Pinchas ben Yair, a miracle happened to him. Of course, Pinchas ben Yair was a giant. So of course miracles happen. That's normal. But this guy in the Gemara was a regular person. He was ordinary. And therefore, from that ordinary person, the nature shouldn't have bent. And that's why Abaye said that, it's not a good thing that nature had to bend for this person. So what do we see from all these instances? And maybe now that you know the idea, you'll find 100 more. We see a very, very important idea that the Sefer Ikrim writes is one of our core beliefs that we have to have in Judaism. And that is that the Torah is above nature. The Torah was given on Shavuos. It was given on the 50th day after Pesach. We have Sfiras HaOmer. We count 7 days, 7 weeks of 7 days. Maral says the number 7 represents the natural order of the world. The world was created in 7 days. And one above 7, number 8, or one above 7 times 7, 50, represents above nature. The Torah was given on day 50 because it's above and beyond nature, supersedes nature. There's no such thing as nature when it comes to the Torah. And that's why when you have someone who embodies the Torah in the greatest way, so nature gets bent towards it. Here's a story that I've said multiple times. We'll bring it back again. Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, who was still in his year since his passing, he wrote many different svarim on areas of the Torah that no one else learns. He called them a meis mitzvah, something that was like dead already. People stopped learning it, it wasn't relevant to them. Maybe it wasn't so inspirational, so people didn't learn it. So he decided he's going to write svarim on all these different areas. So one of the areas that he wrote a sefer on is called Karnei Chagavim. It's all the halachos of grasshoppers. So if anyone is interested in eating a grasshopper or having one as a pet, just read the sefer and he'll tell you how to eat it and what to do with it. Okay. While he was writing the sefer, he needed to see a grasshopper because he was describing the anatomy of the grasshopper. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, jumped onto his windowsill, right next to his seat, a grasshopper. And the grasshopper stayed there until he was finished writing his sefer, and then it disappeared. Okay? We heard the story from Rebbetzin Kanievsky, Alav Shalom, one time when we were in Bnei Brak, and we had a meeting with her, and she told us about the story about her husband. Her husband was still alive. She said, you got to hear the story about the grasshoppers, and told us the story. Okay. There's a part 2 to the story that is a little less known. So I was giving a class on Shavuos night one time in the lobby of the World Center. And it was open to the public, so there were hundreds of people coming to Aish Torah to learn. And I was giving a class, and I was talking about this idea about the Torah being above nature, supernatural. And I said the story about the grasshopper. Afterwards, a young man in a blue shirt comes over to me, and he says, Rabbi, I have to tell you a story. He said, okay. He said, my uncle is a professor in Bar Ilan University. And his expertise is the anatomy of animals. And that's the course that he gives in, he talks about animals, the biology of animals in Bar Ilan. So, and he's not religious. And he got a copy of this book, Karnei Chagavim, of Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and he noted that Reb Chaim's description of the grasshopper is incorrect. He made a mistake. So one time he met Reb Chaim Kanievsky, And he told him, he said, you should know, my expertise is in the biology of animals, and you made a mistake in your description of the grasshopper. Now, Chaim Kanievsky was very much beside himself, because here he wrote a sefer, there's halacha based on it, it's Torah, you don't want to make mistakes, especially in something we call metzias, something that you could just see. Not only that, he saw the grasshopper, and here maybe he was a little beside himself. At that moment, a grasshopper appeared in between Chaim Kanievsky and this professor. The professor picked it up, they were able to look at it together, and the professor noted and agreed that Chaim Kanievsky was correct. And this is a non-religious, non-observant professor. His nephew came and told me the story. Afterwards, I tried to verify it, and I found out that other people knew the story as well. But it's amazing. Like, what does this mean? I need a grasshopper. Poof, right there. It's an amazing thing. But it's not so amazing, because that's the idea that someone who embodies the Torah, nature bends for the Torah. There was a famous story, speaking about splitting of seas and rivers. There was a famous story around 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago, in the town of Dvinsk. The town of Dvinsk was a famous rabbi, Rabbi Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, the author of the Or Sameach, or the Meshech Chachma. And he was the rabbi in Latvia, in Dvinsk. And the way that the town of Dvinsk was built was it was along the powerful Dvina River, D-V-I-N-A. So it was around the river, and there are fortified massive walls that surround the river so that the river would never overflow and destroy the city of Dvinsk. And inside the walls, there were pipes, so that if the water would ever get too high, it would start to go through the pipes so that it would never even get to the top half of the river. But one time, there was like a major, major current, and the water was super strong, and it was so strong that it was rising way above those pipes, and that system was not able to pull down the water, and the water kept on rising and rising and rising, and the people realized that the water was going to overtake the town of Dvinsk. So many people started to flee and get out of here, get out of this country, of the city. They took out all their stuff and they ran. Other people did not want to do that, so they went to the mayor. The mayor knew about this, and they went to the priest. They went to the priest, and this is recorded, by the way, in the non-Jewish documentation of the event. They went to the priest, and the priest said, "I have no idea what to do." He said, "We got to go to the rabbi." So they went to the study hall, the Beis Medrash, where Meir Simcha was there, and they pulled him out. He was studying, and he said, you have to realize what's going on here, Rabbi. The whole town is about to be flooded. We need your help. So Rav Meir Simcha went with him, with the mayor and the priest, and he went on top of, there was like a bridge that hung over the Dvina River. So he went on top of the river, and he said to the river, he said, I demand, he said to the Sar of the river, the angel, the force of the river, I demand from you to go down, for the waters to rescind. Nothing happened. He said, Sar Shal Yam. I had to translate that. Okay. The Sar of the Yam, I demand from you that you have to go down. Stop rising. Nothing happened. He said, Sar Shal Yam, if you don't let your waters go down, I'm going to excommunicate you. And the water started going down. And everyone saw it, and the whole city started dancing. Again, the Jews, the non-Jews, it was a whole thing. The mayor kissed him. It was a very special moment. And this was Rav Meir Simcha, again, not so long ago, lived at the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s. It's such a thing that someone who embodies the Torah, learns the Torah properly, appreciates the Torah, embodies it, the nature bends towards them. What does it do with us? So first of all of you very holy individuals, if you ever want to bend nature, now you know what to do. Okay, now, but really, we have to realize that the Torah that we're learning is a super duper powerful entity. It's not just something I'm learning to get skills. It's not something that I'm just learning one day so that I could learn with my kids. It's not something that I need to learn so I can integrate into the community when I leave Yeshiva. It's not something that I need to know so that I'm not embarrassed in front of other people. It's an amazing, awesome opportunity to learn something that is completely divine. It's something that is above and beyond nature. It's nothing anything like any other subject that anyone has ever taken in high school, in college. It's beyond. It's not comparable. You can't say, well, I do this and I do this. They have nothing to do with each other. One is a total spiritual opportunity to connect to Hashem. Hashem gave us a little bit of a glimpse of what's in His knowledge. And the more that we get to learn, the more we're able to connect to Hashem, to know Hashem, to understand Hashem, to feel close to Hashem. It's like if you ever go to one of your parents and say, can I borrow the car? You know what they're going to say. You know exactly what they're going to say. They're going to say yes or no. Okay, you might have to ask. But you know them so well that you know what they're going to say. Right? The same thing. The more Torah that we're able to learn, the more we connect and we know Hashem. We get inside Kaviyachol. It's an incredible opportunity that we can't ever just like pass over. We should grab every single moment, every single extra line, every single minute, every single hour that we push ourselves and beyond to learn the Torah. It's such an incredible opportunity. You shouldn't even feel like we're pushing. Like it's of course I want to. Okay, I have to go to sleep because I have to go to sleep. Otherwise tomorrow I'm not going to be able to learn. But of course I want to stay up late. Of course I want to learn more. Of course I want to take on more classes. Of course I want to understand more areas of the Torah. It's something that's so beyond and so special. And we have the schus. We have the merit to sit here and learn undisturbed with good meals. Like, what? We have to take advantage of that. And Be'ez Hashem, by doing so, we will connect to the Torah. The Torah will affect us and allow us to rise above everything natural in the world and allow us to connect to Hashem in the greatest, most intense way. Shavua Tov.